our big story tonight, it's just 30 days to go to the repeat presidential election, and pressure continues to mount on the IEBC as politicians demand the exit of key electoral officials. The NASA Super Alliance planning protests at the IEBC headquarters tomorrow morning. Raila Odinga is saying that his supporters will take mass action. JME Simeha from NASA and David Morathe from Jubilee are here with us tonight on the big story. Simeha says anything it takes to make sure that the poll is done in a free and fair manner. David Morathe says, no, let's wait and see what the IEBC has. How do we know that they're in fact not already working on some of the changes towards this repeat poll? Sophia Wanuna also joins us. She's our lead reporter on the big story tonight. And like we told you, she's with somebody who's been a casualty of a similar process to this one. Sophia?
Thank you, Yvonne. Lilian Mahiri Zaja, who's a former vice chair of the IEBC, was ousted from office in similar circumstances, if you like. Then a court, now NASA, demanding they would not go to the just concluded election with the commission as it was then constituted. They were successful with that push. She joins us now. Thank you so much for making the time. I begin with just seeking a comment from you on what you make of the developments so far at the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission.
These are really moments that are momentous for the country, for everyone. And we are at crossroads, and solutions have to be found. And I can tell you at the Commission, it is not interesting because they have to come to work, they have to deliver on their mandate, and the things that are happening around them, notwithstanding, they have to stand firm and do their work.
They have to stand firm and do their work, but at that fallout that was witnessed, leaked memos we've been able to see, Commission clearly at war with itself, commissioners differing, the secretariat as well with odds with some of the commissioners. Does this concern you, having been there before? Did you ever have this kind of fight? And when you see this playing out in public, what do you think?
It's quite depressing to see what's happening, if I may use that word, because politics will always be part and parcel of the electoral process. But the strife within the Commission should not play out to the public, because fights are always there. In any institution, fights are always there. But in the Commission is supposed to be an independent and impartial body. So if all these fights are coming out to the public, they paint a picture of a divided commission, of a divided secretariat, and this does not augur well, especially now when they are preparing to do the fresh election. So they must do everything within their means to ensure they are speaking one language and they are speaking or talking to one another to do what they must do for now, reconstitute themselves within themselves and clean up what they must clean up and move forward, because this is about the country and not about the Commission.
In hindsight, would you say your ouster from office set a negative precedence for this country with this now push to have some of the key officials leave office?
Definitely it is of concern, and it did set a bad precedent, because remember when we passed the new constitution, we had a dispensation where we wanted to promise Kenyans stronger institutions. So if we are going to leave institutions to crumble because we are targeting individuals, then it's quite unfortunate, because when are we going to start looking at an institution's growth? We are looking at processes and how an institution can grow and how we can make our democracy stronger. So it is quite an unfortunate event, if I may say.
And yet an indictment from the Supreme Court, but also the Supreme Court pushing it back to the same IEBC to conduct the fresh poll. What situation would you say, if you were in the Commission, do you think if you were to advise them they should be focusing on now?
They should focus on what the irregularities and the illegalities are. They must go back and look at processes. They must go back and look at the officers who have been pointed a finger at. If it is about an officer who handled the electoral process in a manner that put the integrity in question, the credibility in question, then those officials must really be made to face disciplinary action. If it is about the administrative processes, which must be made simple for Kenyans to understand, then it means the Commission must go back to the drawing board and see to it that those processes are simplified and are improved so that the election is made better when we conduct that election on the 26th of October.
All right. Finally, protest demonstrations to the headquarters set to begin tomorrow by NASA. You endured this. They became popular as the tear gas Mondays. How does that play out in the psyche of commissioners? As officials, you're there, you're meant to prepare an election, and for them now, they have just under 30 days to do so. And then there's all of this political discourse going on that definitely impacts on them. Talk to us about that and what goes through your mind.
Those were very disheartening Mondays because it did not matter what was going on around us and outside, the tear gas and everything. We had to wake up every morning and go to work and deliver on our mandate. So at this point in time, the commissioners must just be strong and stand firm and do what they have to do, because already the Supreme Court delivered their full ruling and they know what the problem is. They know what is ailing the Commission. Many questions have been asked. NASA has their questions. Jubilee has their questions. So the Commission must bring all these factions together, sit down and agree on what needs to be sorted out, and prioritize some of the things that must be done for 26th of October to be a success.
All right. Many thanks. Many thanks. Lilian Mahiri-Zaja, former Vice Chair, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Yvonne, with us here on The Big Story.
Thanks, Sophia Wanuna from the Parkland Sports Club. We will definitely thank you for that, and speaking to somebody who's been there before. Simeha, for how long will the protests last?
For as long as it takes. If the problem is still there, then the cure, if you still have mischief, then you have to continue with what you know is part of the cure. So for as long as it takes for that problem to be sorted out, for IEBC to be purged and cleaned out, all manner of actions, and by the way, not just the protests. The protests are only a small part of the action that NASA has for its program to ensure that we have a credible election. And by the way, this election, people should also stop looking at it as just ticking off the box. It's just one small thing out of the push to continue with the reform process that aborted when Uhuru and Ruto came into power.
But you'll still be there for the meeting on Wednesday?
We will tell when that comes. We will tell.
Or will you be out on the street?
That bridge will be crossed that river will be crossed when we get there.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
I'm sure we'll cross that river very quickly.
Yes.
Because it'll be after tomorrow, then we'll know. I just want to ask you this, because a number of business people have come out to say they're a little apprehensive about what this does to the economy. I'm sure you hear this all the time. You heard this during the Machozi Mondays. What's your reaction to that, to people that say business is being disrupted, this is not good for the economy, we need to portray, an image that business as usual, and we're moving on with our lives?
Yeah, first of all, that's what we do not want, because it cannot be business as usual. When we are bungling, critical governance processes in our country, which set the pace for a nation's development, it cannot be business as usual, and we must contend with the disruption that comes with the desire to reform both our institutions and our policies, institutions, and processes. Secondly, the people who, I just watched a short while ago on a news clip. I mean, they said they are gamer business people in Nairobi, and then they said they are also inviting their Kalenjin brothers. So, they've profiled themselves as the people whose interests will be threatened in Nairobi, gamer community in Nairobi, and then they've invited their Kalenjin brothers. I'm neither gamer nor Kalenjin, so it means that they're not out to protect my interest. But in terms of what they said, that they'll also come and counter-protest, it's absolutely perfect. It's constitutional, it's legal, it's their right. If they have something to express themselves, they're totally welcome to express themselves. Now it's just up to the police to make sure that they demarcate that those who are protesting for this purpose stay on this side, those who are protesting for the other purpose stay on this side.
All right.
Don't, because again, when you allow protesters to clash, we can lose control.
Things can definitely go out of control. David?
But I'm sorry, Yvonne.
Please, you've got to give David a moment,
I'm very sorry,
please.
David. Just a quick one. In terms of the economy, I was just forgetting to say that. To whose benefit? Who does this economy benefit? It's part of the struggle that we are pushing in this country. Who does this economy benefit?
Okay.
When we have a government that borrows hugely and a few people benefit, and then we see numbers, and they say, don't look at anything else. Look at the numbers. The economy is doing very well.
All right, so I need to bring in David in this discussion. He says it's their constitutional right to go out and protest and say there are things that are happening within the IEBC that they're not happy about. We've seen some of those individuals who say they're from Gema and they're representing the Kalenjin community as well, that they will come out and protect their interests. So isn't it NASA's democratic right to go to the streets tomorrow and say there are certain things we're not happy with?
They're free. But you've just heard him that they have nothing to protect in terms of the economy. They have no stakes in this economy, and therefore they would rather go and burn the town. Having said that, Yvonne...
What? Did you just say that?
I want to advise my friend here. Number one, nobody's going anywhere. They can riot, they can demonstrate for as long as it takes. Nobody is going anywhere. The court found, and it's in the judgment, they said it, the Chief Justice, we cannot lay fingerprints on any individual culpability. Now, if they talk about the issues they're raising through affidavits, we also have issues about James Orengo, Musalia Mudavadi, and we have asked the DPP, and the DPP has ordered investigations for both sides. But the ruling was very, very clear. They never apportioned any criminal culpability to any individual, either in the Secretariat or in the Commission. This joke, thinking that every time they go to Anniversary Tower, we change the Commission, that is not going to happen this time.
Okay, so I want to talk about just some of the issues that they're claiming they're raising, some of their demands ahead of the poll, and perhaps you can take a look at them on your screen right now. So they want Chiloba to resign. They want a fresh team to handle the repeat poll. I'm just wondering, are there any requirements of, and I don't want to call them demands, I don't know if you will call them demands, but is there anything that the Jubilee Party feels would like to see changed within the Commission, perhaps that you will speak about at the meeting on Wednesday? Are there any concerns? Fine, as you say, the Supreme Court didn't pinpoint any one individual, but the process, they did mention that. What changes would you like to see?
Yvonne, by and large, the voting was correct. Everybody turned out, voted peacefully. The counting at the polling centers was correct. Nobody had an issue with that. The tallying at the constituencies was accurate, except in those constituencies where some of the arrows disappeared and didn't sign forms. And it's out there, they were basically NASA arrows. So when they talk about changing arrows, perfect. When they talk about changing POs, perfect. We don't have a problem with that. The only problem is when you talk about the process and you say that the votes counted or the votes cast don't matter. What matters is the transmission, electronic transmission. And I can tell you for free, Yvonne, this week, we're going to go by the ruling of the court. And the court has talked about the complementary system of transmission. We're going to allow people to vote. Those votes will go to the constituencies if it needs armored personnel carriers to carry them from the constituency. Because the result as announced at the constituency is final to the National Tallying Center. We will do it. Because it cannot be a function of transmission where an arrow can deliberately decide. Oh, yes, there are only 290.
Jubilee Party will do that?
The government has a responsibility
I just wanted to be clear. Whether you're saying we as the party,
the government has a responsibility to ensure that those votes is tallied and announced at the constituency, because the law says what is announced at the constituency is final, are safely delivered to the National Tallying Center, because that is where the disconnect was. And by the way, we are going to challenge them, and we are going to amend the law to make it mandatory for them to have agents in every polling station, and we will make sure they sign Because these people are telling you what everybody knows. They have no chance in hell of winning this election, and therefore they don't want to go to this election. What they need to do is to go and withdraw. They write officially to Chiloba, to Chebukati, and say they're not participating. We swear in Uhuru, and Kenyans get back their lives.
All right. IEBC has asked you to hold off. That's the statement that's coming in tonight on this big story. I said, hold off and wait and see what measures they have put in place to ensure a free and fair poll 30 days from today. Will you do that?
No, because it doesn't mean that these two processes are mutually exclusive. IEBC, if it is genuine, even tonight could be doing the things that it needs to be doing, but that doesn't stop any citizen from putting pressure on it so that it can perfect, it can give us guarantees that, that it's prepared. And we need to see this, by the way. You know, IEBC is not some secretive private business. IEBC is a public institution. And let me just tell my brother here, indeed, there are whistleblowers all over. Forget those days when, during the Golden Bug, one guy would do whistleblowing and then he's haunted and so on. Even the highest level in government, including in the president's office, there are whistleblowers. And those are patriotic citizens.
And I agree because when we introduced them Mkatenusu, they were able to infiltrate government. And that is the reason there will never be another Mkatenusu government in this country.
So do you have whistleblowers within government, within the IEBC?
No, unlike him, you know, my brother here talks as if Jubilee owns IEBC. We do not own IEBC. When I say whistleblowers, those are not NASA whistleblowers. If all you care, by the way, these could be members of Jubilee, but they're just patriotic citizens. They want to see things done right. So if it's the army messing, they will leak that information. It happens all over the world, including in the USA. If the president himself who is messing, they will leak that information. Why do they leak that information? So that we can know what is happening behind closed doors in our public, keyword, public institutions, and as a citizenry, let me just finish. Do something about it.
Yeah.
One final thing on what you said. It is not the responsibility of government to secure those votes. It is the responsibility of IEBC, completely independent from government, and that is our problem.
That is not
David,
because they are the same thing.
David, I want to give you the final word on this one.
Yvonne, the government is there to provide the enabling environment. IEBC has no security agencies of their own. Government supports the IEBC. When they're working, correct, they're under the IEBC. But what I wanted to understand from their side, do they want an election or do they not want an election? Because as far as we're concerned, we also have irreducible minimums. Good. We have said those ballots have been secured. Can they agree that we go and have them counted? They won't go there, all right? The High Court, the Supreme Court, talked about the processes. And they said the process was more important than the substance. Now, that is what we have a problem with. Okay. They have talked about their irreducible minimums for the election to take place.
You have yours as well.
Ours are that an election, you have seen the recent one in Germany.
Yes.
I mean,
we're really out of time.
It's not a matter of life and death. You walk in, you cast your vote, you go home, you go on with your life.
Gentlemen, thank you. David Murathe, who's the vice chair of the Jubilee Party, and JME Simeha, who's a NASA strategist. And NASA says they're going ahead with that planned protest tomorrow. They're saying it is peaceful. They have notified the security agencies regarding that. IEBC has asked them to hold off. NASA says no chance. They will still be out on the streets tomorrow. Meanwhile, Jubilee says they also have their irreducible minimums, which includes a recount of the vote. And they say none of the IEBC officials is going anywhere. David, we're out of time. Okay. Okay. All right. So David says... Okay. All right. Thank you. David Murathe says no protest there. Thank you. This is the big story right here. That protest will be on tomorrow. We will probably be covering that, whatever big story that takes place tomorrow. From myself, Sophia Wanuna, who's our lead reporter on this show, and indeed everyone else, we thank you. We will see you again tomorrow when we cover tomorrow's big story. I'm Yvonne Okwara Matole. Good night.